In a dramatic escalation of Immigration Policy, Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced the revocation of visas for all South Sudanese passport holders, citing the transitional government's failure to accept deportees in a timely manner. This decision, made public on April 5, 2025, underscores the Trump administration's intensified efforts to expedite the deportation of foreign nationals from the United States, a commitment made by Donald Trump during his campaign. Rubio's announcement came in the wake of increasing tensions between the U.S. and South Sudan. "We will be prepared to review these actions when South Sudan is in full cooperation," Rubio stated, emphasizing the administration's zero-tolerance approach to nations that do not comply with U.S. repatriation requests. This move mirrors a prior threat made by Trump in January against Colombia, which quickly reversed its stance on accepting deportees following the imposition of visa sanctions. The backdrop of this visa revocation is fraught with complexity. South Sudan is currently on the brink of renewed civil conflict, exacerbated by deep-rooted political and ethnic strife. The United Nations has reported that violence since February has already displaced tens of thousands, raising concerns over the humanitarian implications of Rubio's directive. Lucas Guttentag, a former Justice Department official, criticized the action as damning individuals based on nationality, arguing it endangers innocent visa holders rather than fostering diplomatic relations. This situation is further complicated by ongoing legal battles faced by potential deportees. Some have filed lawsuits against the administration, resulting in temporary restraining orders from various judges. Rubio has indicated that he has revoked around 300 visas as part of a broader deportation campaign. Among those affected is Oscar Arias Sanchez, the former president of Costa Rica, whose visa was suspended after he publicly criticized Trump. The U.S. has historically struggled with repatriating deportees due to issues like diplomatic relations and the acquisition of necessary travel documents. This ongoing challenge has prompted previous administrations to impose visa sanctions on uncooperative countries, a tactic that appears to be gaining traction under the current leadership. Notably, the Biden administration had previously offered temporary protected status to South Sudanese migrants, recognizing the violence and instability in their home country. As the situation continues to evolve, the ramifications of Rubio's decision could extend beyond immediate immigration policy. With South Sudan on the verge of renewed conflict, many fear that deportees sent back could face dire consequences, further complicating the U.S. government's stance on human rights and immigration reform. The international community will be closely watching how the Trump administration navigates this diplomatic minefield in the coming weeks, particularly as the humanitarian crisis in South Sudan escalates. In conclusion, the revocation of visas for South Sudanese nationals by the Trump administration exemplifies a broader trend of aggressive immigration policies that prioritize rapid deportation over diplomatic engagement. As tensions mount and the situation in South Sudan deteriorates, the implications of this decision could resonate well beyond U.S. borders, potentially igniting international outrage and complicating existing diplomatic relations. The coming months will be crucial in determining how these policies will shape the future of U.S. immigration and foreign policy. In a series of dramatic personnel changes within the U.S. military structure, the Trump administration has taken steps that have raised eyebrows and prompted discussions about the future direction of military leadership under a new political agenda. The recent firing of Vice Admiral Shoshana Chatfield, the only female member on NATO's military committee, underscores a broader trend of dismissing high-ranking military officials who support diversity and inclusion initiatives. This comes in the wake of President Donald Trump's renewed focus on combating what he terms woke policies within the military. Chatfield's dismissal was confirmed by U.S. officials who indicated that the decision was likely made by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, although it remains unclear if Trump directly influenced the action. The call to Chatfield from Administrator Christopher Grady, acting chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, was described as a communication of the administration's desire to go in a different direction regarding military leadership. The absence of a clear rationale for her termination suggests the move was emblematic of the administration's pushback against leaders perceived to be promoting progressive ideals within the armed forces. Senator Mark Warner, a Democrat from Virginia, voiced his concerns, stating, "Trump's relentless attacks on our alliances and his careless dismissal of decorated military officials make us less safe and weaken our position across the world." This sentiment reflects a growing unease among lawmakers and local leaders regarding the implications of these firings on military readiness and international relations. Chatfield, a distinguished Navy helicopter pilot and a veteran of deployments in the Pacific and Persian Gulf, had previously advocated for diversity within the military. Her support for initiatives aimed at empowering women and her statements emphasizing the strength of diversity were highlighted by the conservative American Accountability Foundation, which had placed her on a woke list. The foundation has been vocal in its criticism of military leaders who engage in diversity, equity, and inclusion (DEI) programs, urging a purge of such influences from the armed forces. This pattern of dismissing female leaders in the military is not new. Chatfield was the third senior female officer to be ousted under Trump's presidency following the firings of Admiral Lisa Franchetti and Admiral Linda Fagan. These actions have drawn criticism not only for their implications on gender representation in military leadership but also for the potential impact on the military's operational effectiveness and global standing. As the Pentagon grapples with this shifting landscape, analysts are closely monitoring the repercussions of these personnel changes. The administration's commitment to dismantling DEI programs and promoting a more traditional military ethos could lead to significant changes in recruitment, retention, and overall military culture. The long-term effects on the U.S. military's strategic partnerships with allies, particularly within NATO, remain to be seen. In the coming months, the military and political spheres will undoubtedly continue to evolve as the administration pushes its agenda. The decisions made today could redefine military leadership for years to come, influencing not only how the U.S. military operates domestically but also its role on the global stage. As discussions around diversity and inclusion remain contentious, the military's ability to adapt and maintain its effectiveness in a rapidly changing world will be critical to its future success. In a significant shift in U.S. health policy, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has announced plans to urge the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention (CDC) to cease its recommendations for water fluoridation across the country. This announcement, made during a press conference in Salt Lake City, coincides with the Environmental Protection Agency (EPA) initiating a review of potential health risks associated with fluoride in drinking water. The implications of these moves are poised to reverberate throughout public health circles, as fluoride has long been regarded as a critical component in preventing tooth decay. Kennedy's declaration follows Utah's recent legislative decision to become the first state to ban the addition of fluoride to public drinking water supplies. This legislation, signed by Republican Governor Spencer Cox, prohibits local municipalities from determining whether to fluoridate their water, effectively mandating that all water systems in the state cease fluoridation by May 7. Kennedy praised Utah's leadership in what he termed "making America healthy again," aligning with broader efforts under the Trump administration aimed at reshaping health policies nationwide. While Kennedy lacks the authority to compel local communities to stop fluoridation, he can guide the CDC to withdraw its endorsement and collaborate with the EPA to alter federally mandated fluoride levels. Kennedy, who has previously characterized fluoride as a dangerous neurotoxin, has raised concerns linking fluoride exposure to various health issues including arthritis and thyroid disease. Though some studies hint at potential risks, particularly at levels exceeding those recommended by current guidelines, the scientific community remains divided on the matter. Critics argue that claims regarding fluoride's dangers often stem from misinterpretations of data and lack robust supporting evidence. The CDC has historically endorsed water fluoridation since the 1950s, citing its effectiveness in reducing cavities by up to 25% among both children and adults. Currently, approximately 65% of the U.S. population drinks fluoridated water, with the CDC recommending a concentration of 0.7 milligrams per liter. However, an increasing number of studies have emerged over recent years, questioning the safety and efficacy of fluoride at these levels. A notable report by the federal government's National Toxicology Program indicated that water containing fluoride concentrations above 1.5 milligrams per liter could be associated with lower IQs in children, a finding that has fueled ongoing debate. As Kennedy embarks on this initiative, he faces opposition from various health organizations, including the American Dental Association (ADA), which has defended the long-standing benefits of fluoride in public health. ADA President Brett Kessler criticized Kennedy's stance, asserting that undermining established scientific research could harm public health initiatives. Meanwhile, local health advocates like Utah Oral Health Coalition chairperson Lorna Cosi are vocal about their concerns, arguing that Kennedy's push against fluoridation reflects a troubling politicization of health policy. Looking ahead, the ongoing reviews by the CDC and EPA will likely shape future recommendations regarding fluoride use in drinking water. As the public grapples with the implications of these decisions, the potential for a nationwide shift in fluoride policy raises questions about the impact on dental health, particularly among low-income communities who may lack access to regular dental care. With nearly 1 in 4 children living below the federal poverty line experiencing untreated tooth decay, the stakes are high. Kennedy's position and the resulting policy changes underscore a broader trend of skepticism towards established health practices, potentially eroding public trust in health authorities. As this narrative unfolds, the dialogue surrounding fluoride will likely continue to evolve, influencing both public health strategies and community health outcomes in the years to come. In a recent interview, Pam Bondi, the Attorney General under President Donald Trump, suggested that the president will probably step down after his second term concludes. This statement, made on Fox News Sunday, underscores the ongoing discussions surrounding Trump's political future and the implications of potential constitutional changes that would enable him to seek a third term. Bondi articulated that while she believes Trump's tenure will end after his second term, amending the Constitution to allow for an extension would be a heavy lift requiring significant political maneuvering, including a 2/3 majority in both the Senate and House. Bondi's comments come amid a backdrop of significant political activity in the Trump administration. Recently, Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced the revocation of visas for all South Sudanese passport holders, citing the South Sudanese government's failure to effectively manage the return of its citizens. This decision is part of a broader strategy to address the ongoing refugee crisis in South Sudan, which, according to the United Nations, has seen over 2.32 million people fleeing violence in the country. The political landscape is further complicated by the Trump administration's handling of immigration issues, including a recent incident where a Maryland man was mistakenly deported. In a surprising move, Bondi stated that this individual should stay where he is, raising questions about the administration's approach to immigration enforcement and the judicial process. This incident highlights ongoing tensions within the Justice Department, particularly as the government faces scrutiny over its immigration policies. In another significant development, Bondi revealed that she has received death threats for her decision to pursue the death penalty against Luigi Mangione, a suspect in the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Her remarks reflect the heightened political stakes surrounding capital punishment and the challenges faced by officials in making controversial legal decisions. Bondi characterized the case as one that necessitates the death penalty, emphasizing the serious nature of the crime and the political backlash she faces for her stance. As the Trump administration navigates these complex issues, the implications for both domestic policy and the president's future remain uncertain. Bondi's statements indicate a recognition of the challenges ahead, not only for Trump's potential re-election but also for the administration's broader legislative agenda. With the 2026 elections approaching, the political landscape will likely evolve as these issues develop, influencing the direction of the Republican Party and shaping the discourse surrounding governance in the United States. The coming months will be pivotal in determining how these narratives unfold, and whether Trump will indeed conclude his presidency after a second term or if there will be further attempts to alter the political status quo. In a landscape increasingly defined by economic tensions, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has characterized China's recent escalation of tariffs as a significant miscalculation, suggesting that the nation is operating from a disadvantageous position in the ongoing trade war. In a candid interview on CNBC's Squawk Box, Bessent articulated that the U.S. has a considerable upper hand, stating, "What do we lose by the Chinese raising tariffs on us? We export 1/5 to them of what they export to us, so that is a losing hand for them." This statement reflects a growing sentiment among U.S. officials that the dynamics of trade are shifting in favor of American interests. The remarks from Bessent come at a critical juncture, as the U.S. is poised to raise tariffs on China and numerous other countries as part of a broader strategy aimed at renegotiating trade agreements. This strategy, described by Bessent as an effort to bring trading partners to the negotiating table, also seeks to reshore jobs back to the U.S. He mentioned that Japan is among the countries eager to negotiate, and the expectation is that many others will soon follow suit. "I think you are going to see some very large countries with large trade deficits come forward very quickly," he added. The backdrop of these discussions is the stark reality of the U.S.-China trade relationship, which saw the U.S. running a nearly $300 billion trade deficit with China in 2024, accounting for about 1/3 of the total trade imbalance. In light of this, President Donald Trump has threatened to impose an additional 50% tariff on Chinese imports if the current tariffs are not withdrawn. The administration believes that by imposing tariffs it can open up markets for American products and encourage manufacturing to return to U.S. soil. Bessent's comments, while optimistic, also spotlight the complex and often tumultuous nature of international trade negotiations. Approximately 70 countries have reached out to the White House since the announcement of the Liberation Day tariff regime, with discussions underway for potential trade deals. However, experts caution that negotiating individual agreements with such a diverse array of nations is an arduous task that may not yield immediate results. Jai Kadia, a research fellow at the Cato Institute, emphasized that the haphazard implementation of tariffs could complicate negotiations, potentially undermining the administration's objectives. Despite these challenges, Bessent remains hopeful that the U.S. can secure favorable deals that will ultimately generate jobs and revenue. He likened the structure of the tariff system to a melting ice cube, suggesting that as new manufacturing facilities are established in the U.S., tariff revenues may decrease over time. This perspective aligns with a broader economic strategy that seeks to balance immediate fiscal gains with longer-term growth objectives. The stock market responded positively to Bessent's comments, reflecting a cautious optimism among investors regarding the potential for resolution in tariff negotiations. However, the volatility of the markets serves as a reminder of the uncertainty that accompanies such aggressive trade policies. As the administration continues to navigate this complex landscape, the outcomes of these negotiations will be pivotal in shaping not only economic dynamics but also geopolitical relationships in the years to come. In conclusion, the unfolding trade saga between the U.S. and China, marked by escalating tariffs and a flurry of international negotiations, underscores a pivotal moment for global trade. The effectiveness of Bessent's optimism will ultimately depend on the administration's ability to translate initial discussions into concrete agreements that address the underlying imbalances in trade relationships. As these developments continue to unfold, the world will be watching closely to gauge their impact on both the U.S. economy and the broader international trading system. In a striking shift within the corridors of power in Washington, Howard Lutnick, the Secretary of Commerce, has emerged as a polarizing figure, eclipsing even Elon Musk in the realm of public disdain. Lutnick's controversial policies and brash demeanor have drawn ire from both business leaders and White House aides, creating an atmosphere of tension and uncertainty as he pushes the Trump administration's aggressive tariff agenda. Lutnick's ascent to notoriety has been fueled by his staunch advocacy for tariffs that many believe could precipitate economic turmoil. His recent clashes with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and National Economic Council Chair Kevin Hassett, who sought to moderate the administration's approach, have made him a target of frustration within the administration. Lutnick's unwavering stance on tariffs, which could potentially tip the U.S. economy into recession or even a global depression, has led to accusations that he is more interested in currying favor with President Trump than in sound economic policy. "He's trying to be a mini-Trump," remarked a source close to the administration, reflecting the growing discontent with Lutnick's abrasive style and perceived lack of economic understanding. Historically, Lutnick is no stranger to adversity. As the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, he faced unimaginable loss during the September 11 attacks, losing 650 employees, including his brother. This tragedy shaped his early reputation as a resilient leader, but his controversial business practices have often overshadowed his philanthropic efforts. Reports indicate that he was widely disliked within the financial industry, and decisions such as cutting off paychecks to families of deceased employees mere days after the attacks have tarnished his legacy. In recent months, Lutnick's role has evolved, aligning him closely with Trump's economic vision. His transition from a supporter of Hillary Clinton during the 2016 election to a notable Trump fundraiser highlights his political maneuvering. His financial backing and vocal support have positioned him as a key player in Trump's economic circle, earning him the title of top emissary to Wall Street from the Wall Street Journal. One of Lutnick's most contentious claims came during a recent appearance on CBS's Face the Nation, where he asserted that an army of millions would be mobilized to manufacture iPhones in the U.S. as part of Trump's drive to bring jobs back to American shores. However, this ambitious vision is shadowed by the reality that tariffs, particularly a proposed 54% levy on Chinese imports, may drive up consumer prices significantly. Analysts warn that such moves could see the price of Apple's premium iPhone models soar from $1,599 to upwards of $2,300, imposing an additional financial burden on American consumers already grappling with inflation. Critics, including former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers, have condemned the tariff policies as economically reckless, predicting that they could cost the U.S. economy $30 trillion, an alarming figure that translates to $300,000 per household. The uncertainty these tariffs create is palpable, particularly in the tech sector that relies heavily on foreign manufacturing. As Lutnick navigates his role, the question remains whether he genuinely believes in the policies he champions or if he is merely a performer in Trump's economic theater. While he continues to defend the tariff strategy, publicly reports suggest that privately he harbors doubts about its efficacy. This dichotomy raises concerns about the administration's coherence and the potential fallout of its policies. Looking ahead, Lutnick's future remains uncertain, with whispers of discontent brewing within the White House and the economic implications of his tariff policies looming large. It is conceivable that he may soon face scrutiny over the administration's economic direction. As the administration grapples with balancing aggressive trade policies against the backdrop of potential economic fallout, Lutnick's role may evolve yet again, possibly paving the way for a dramatic reshuffling within Trump's inner circle. The coming months could reveal whether Lutnick can maintain his standing or if the very policies he champions will lead to his undoing.